Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Chris Elliott Show. The Wildcats are home for the first time during the 2015 campaign. Hope to have you here at 1:30 kickoff this coming Saturday, right here at Wildcat Stadium. We're up in the Holland Room as we bring you our Chris Elliott Show. The coach will join us in a few minutes. The Bears and the Cats, they've met 9 times. This will be the 10th meeting, and it's the Bears leading the series with a slight edge at 5-4, although the Cats won here last year at Wildcat Stadium. Joining me in the first segment with his picks, it's going to be the Zach picks as we end. Boy, is he off to a great start. And then Coach Elliott will join us a little later. But Zach, welcome back aboard with the Chris Elliott Show. And before we get into the Bears and the Cats, we'll get into the Pick'em Show here in just a segment in a few minutes. But you've had 11 games you've picked, and boy, you've been outstanding thus far.
I have. I've been very lucky with it. Almost got the Campbellsville game right the first week. They just, on the last second field goal, missed a field goal. So, been very lucky.
You hit almost on the head. I picked Georgetown. You picked Lindsey Wilson. And Lindsey Wilson, with that win, has moved to number 3 in the country. Faulkner at number 5, Reinhardt at number 24. We'll talk to Coach Elliott about the rankings here in a few minutes. And yes, we play all 3 of those teams. But Lindsey Wilson, you almost picked that score right to the penny.
Missed it by a field goal.
Yeah. And they went into Georgetown and beat them. The Bears coming into town, we beat them here last year. Certainly they have an outstanding football team. They're 1-2, but they're a lot better than that record indicates.
They are. They've got I'm pretty sure Coach Elliott will say they've got a very good kicker as well. I think his name's Karapanzik.
That's right.
I've seen him last year. He did very well last year. So also got a pretty good linebacker as well that we'll have to face this week.
Mr. Williams, an outstanding linebacker. Quan Weaver leads their offensive attack with he was averaging over 100 yards per game. And then Karapanzik, as you said, he's 5 of 5 in field goals. And he has proved he's a mere mortal among us. I think he's missed 1 PAT. He's 8 of 9. Solid quarterback, not a great, flashy quarterback, but a guy that runs their offense well. And defensively, they'll get after you.
Oh, yes, they will. They've always got that little bit of grit to them. Every year we've seen them play, or I have here in my time at Bethel. So
let's throw out the Martin game. We're not even going to talk about it a lot. Tough game up at Martin, but first quarter we really played well. You in the press box, you said the Martin folks, the VIPs up there, were getting a little nervous at the end of one.
You could hear a pin drop up there at the end of the first quarter. They were still reeling from the playing Ole Miss the first week, and I don't think they expect us to defense to play that well.
Outstanding effort in the first quarter. The Cats gave a great effort throughout the night, but just overwhelmed there by the overall talent, I guess you could say, of UT Martin. Game not as, I think the game was a little closer than the final score indicates. I don't think they dominate us, but we wish Coach Simpson and the Skyhawks the very best. This Pikeville team coming in, first game in the conference. It's not a divisional game, so it doesn't count in your standings, but it is the first time that we step at home and the first time that we step into the conference play.
And we'll be there the rest of the season. But the good thing about it for Coach Elliott and the Wildcats is they'll have a couple more tune-up games before getting into actual divisional games that'll count.
He's going to tell you about some injury updates. He's going to tell you about the offensive and defensive side of the ball, both for us, the Wildcats, and the Pikeville Bears in just a minute as well. We don't have a lot of time in this first segment, but let's talk about the Pikeville Bears and the Cats. We'll save their game to last. We're going to get right to what we like to call Zach's picks. Got to come up with a better. We got to come up with. I mean, it's Diamond Dave, and that has a little bit of ring to it. I got to come up with a nickname for you with this.
We may have to talk to Coach Kilburn about that. I think he may have one for
Coach Kilburn has one.
We may have
it has to be nice. It can't be off color or anything. I'm just teasing. Coach Kilburn's a great guy. Let's start with the Reinhardt game. They traveled to Georgetown. Georgetown now dropping out of the top 25. Very unusual, although they did receive votes in the Reinhardt Ball Club out of Georgia, number 24. Who do you like and why?
Well, Georgetown drops from 11. They're just right outside. I think they were the second team receiving votes just outside. Reinhardt jumps up tied for 24. Reinhardt's been very impressive so far this year, as we figured they would be. They were picked to win the co-champions of the East. It's going to be close. In Georgetown, they're playing at home again this weekend, and I mean, as you said last week, and I got lucky because on the pick last week of Lindsey Wilson beat him at home, but I've got to give a slight edge to Reinhardt.
You're going with Reinhardt.
They've got momentum going.
I'm going with the Tigers. Jenny Elder, the very lovely SID there, a great friend of mine for a few years. I say a few years, quite a while, but she's a lot younger than I am. But wish both teams the very best, but I got to pull for Georgetown, and that one, Bill Cronin, the gang. I'm going with the Tigers. I cannot see Georgetown opening up 0-3. I just can't see it. Although I think Reinhardt has a great shot to win that, I'm going with the Tigers. Next one, Bluefield at number 3, Lindsey Wilson in Columbia. And nothing against the folks at Bluefield. Great people. I was up there last year with a radio broadcast, but this could get ugly if Bluefield doesn't play well at Lindsey Wilson.
Beautiful country there as well. I say Lindsey Wilson, start to say Faulkner, but Lindsey Wilson, number 3, highest ranking that they've had. They're on a roll. They've got it going, well-oiled machine going, the way they look so far. I have to go with Lindsey Wilson here.
I'm going with Lindsey Wilson as well. Chris Wells, a very fine SID there, a great friend of mine. He is the SID of the conference as well. Best press box to work in the entire league is at Lindsey Wilson. Pikeville at Bethel, we'll save that one for a moment. We've got the Battle of the Cumberlands. It's the Hatfields and McCoys here. It's the Cumberland, Tennessee Ball Club and the, of course, the Cumberland, Kentucky Ball Club.
Well, Cumberland, Tennessee went to West Alabama and Livingston and played them pretty close. Had the lead at I think around halftime. They had the lead, or first or the second quarter. West Alabama came back and won the game very handily. I've got Cumberland's Kentucky. I believe is going to be the favorite there. I believe I'm going to take them. They're playing at home. They'll be in their friendly confines. I just think Cumberland's Kentucky will take it.
I'm going with the Patriots in Williamsburg as well. Now, they're the Patriots now. You remember what they were before the Patriots?
I do not.
They were the Indians. And
That's
then
right.
the political correctness came in the way of the world, and now they are the Patriots. Jennifer Wake Floyd, a great SID there. And, of course, your favorite and my favorite, JoJo Freeman from Cumberland. He'll probably make that trip too, won't he?
He probably will.
Yeah.
Great guy.
And no grass grows under his feet, let me tell you. Meanwhile, it's Campbellsville at Union, Kentucky. Our very best to Jay Stansel, the SID at Union, by the way. His mom has been very, very ill down in Florida, and our thoughts and prayers with his family as well. But how do you like this one? Campbellsville at Union up in Barberville, Kentucky.
Well, they've only 2 games that I've missed all year. Have been Campbellsville. I picked Campbellsville both times. This is going to be a close game, I think, as well. I'm going to go with Campbellsville.
I'm going to go with Campbellsville. I'm going to go with the Fighting Tigers on the road as well. I think they've got a little bit too much firepower for Union up in Barberville, and certainly the leaves and the trees haven't turned yet, but boy, you want to see a scenic view. Go up to Barberville here in about 3 or 4 weeks, and it will absolutely be gorgeous. Nice little town nestling down in some of the mountains there in the Commonwealth. You can tell I'm some of the Commonwealth guy other than being a Bethel guy too, can't you?
Oh, yeah.
Kentucky Christian, that's where Bethel will go next week after they play Pikeville here at home this week. They're at Moorhead. Could get ugly.
Moorhead, a NCAA school.
The OVC.
So they'll kind of be, well, Moorhead will, same league that Martin plays as well, and that I've got to go Moorhead State there, playing at home.
They're only about less than an hour apart. After you go through God's country in Lexington, you travel right on over to Grayson, Kentucky, and Grayson back to Moorhead's only about probably 40 minutes at best, but certainly an interesting. So that's who you're picking this week. Now Faulkner, they're the open date, so you don't have to worry about them. But let's talk about the Eagles. They moved up to number 5 in the country.
They've been very impressive so far.
You don't think they're as good as they've been in years past, though? You told me in the office the other day.
Well, the only thing with that, and it's just looking at the Bluefield game.
Remember, now they come here later. So
I know. I've got to be very careful.
Don't stir them up or anything. Yeah.
Doug,
Doug Amos is probably watching this thing.
Yeah, they from what we've seen the previous years, their defense may not be as well as we've seen.
You seen Doug lately? Lost a lot of weight. Looking great.
Seen.
He's looking great. Something that you and I both probably need to work on. What do you think?
Oh yeah.
All right. Give me the Cats. Give me the Cats and the Bears. Dub Bears. Who do you like in this one?
Well, I was careful last week with the Pikeville pick.
I can't believe you're hesitant here. I mean, you got to go with the Cats. I mean, if you ask me that question, just ask me.
Who are you going with?
I'm going Wildcats in a big way, but they don't play well. The Pikeville doesn't play. No, but go ahead.
Well, I was careful with the Pikeville game last week, and I picked Point to beat Pikeville, and Point edged them by a field goal.
36-33, yeah.
And they've got 3 standout players. Got a great running back there. Got the great linebacker, great field goal kicker, but we do too.
Yep.
So, and we're going to be playing at home, and it's a long ride from Pikeville.
Give me a score.
I'm going to go 38-27.
I'm going 27-14 Cats.
I'm going Bethel.
Man, going Bethel. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Zach, thanks so much, buddy.
Yes,
Always a pleasure to work with you. Our co-host here on the Chris Elliott Show. And speaking of Chris Elliott, the coach is going to join us right after this. Stay with us. This is Wildcat Vision and the Sports Information Department's production of the Chris Elliott Show. And Coach is coming up next right here on Wildcat Vision. Well, as promised, Coach Chris Elliott does join us here on the Chris Elliott Show. And Coach, welcome back aboard on Wildcat Vision.
Thank you, Dave. Great to be here.
A few days off, though, as we get ready for this big game coming up Saturday against Pikeville. Tough game up at Martin. First quarter was outstanding, and then, of course, we had Tay with a big touchdown later late in the game, so accentuating the positive. They're a really good football team. We didn't play well portions of the game, but I thought at times there were some really good things in the silver lining there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, from the outside looking in, when you see the score, you know, people would think there wouldn't be much good to say about it, but when you look at things the way we do, in terms of breaking them down play by play, person by person, those kind of things,
sure.
You know, we did do some good things. You know, defensively, we took their run game away, you know, specifically in the first half, and, you know, forced them to throw the ball. Of course, you know, they made a lot of big plays, and,
right.
you know, made some plays against some of our younger defensive backs. You know, in the past game, and of course, you know, they had some big plays, which, you know, put a lot of points on the board quickly. But the fact that we were able to take their run game away and force them into doing something else, what was a positive. Now, obviously, our pass defense is, you know, got to be stronger. But those guys, you know, sometimes you learn the hard way. And some of those guys, you know, second game of college football, you know, playing guys like that, and, you know, typically we don't necessarily see, you know, that talent level across the board. In receiving cores, but those guys, you know, those guys have gotten better because of it. Sometimes, like I said, you just learn the hard way. Offensively, we had chances. I mean, you know, they scored on the first drive, and of course, you know, they had to convert a couple fourth downs to get that, and you know, we marched the ball right back down the field and had the ball inside the 10, and, you know, I mean, whether we score a touchdown there or not, I don't know if it changes the entire outcome of the game, but the fact that we settled for 3 points there, for them, that's a win. You know, for any defense you're playing, when you march the ball down the field and you don't score a touchdown, you know, they kind of, you know, breathe a sigh of relief and say, well, they only got 3. You know, and we had chances all through the night. I mean, it was just, you know, a matter of finishing a block here, finishing a block there. But, I mean, and that's, you know, that's the same with every game. So, I mean, you know, it wasn't any different, you know, than any other game that, you know, we've been unsuccessful in the past. You can sit back and say, okay, well, you know, these are the things that, you know, we messed up on and the things that we need to work on.
Good points, Coach. And if you watch the film of that game, you'll see, too, that there wasn't total domination like the score would indicate. There were some big plays. I know, for example, they had a fourth and whatever, long, and we let them off the hook there. So a couple plays like that hurt us, too.
Yeah, I mean, and they do. I mean, and I don't care who you're playing,
sure.
Whether you're playing the New Orleans Saints, Tennessee Martin, or Pikeville. I mean, you know, you give up plays like that or make mistakes like that, it's really going to hurt you.
Right.
And it did.
Yeah. And we wish Coach Simpson and the Skyhawks the very best the rest of the year. They're in the OVC, and again, we wish them success this year. Coach, a tough injury. One of our newcomers hurt. I know the MRI earlier this week. What's the latest?
Well, I mean, Kamari, he tore his ACL, so, you know, unfortunately, unfortunately, you know, we'll lose him for the rest of the year. If there is a positive side to it, he did it early enough to where, you know, we can get a medical hardship and get the year back. So, you know, yeah, he played a game and a half for us, but he'll get the season back, so he'll still have 4 years. Yeah, I think he's due to have surgery next week, and you know, and then a lot of rehab, and then, you know, hopefully it'll be back in time for spring.
Absolutely. Before we talk about the Pikeville Bears, I want to take just a minute to a mentor of yours, a cohort of yours. You worked with him for a long time. We send along our condolences to Dino and Nicole and the gang. Dino lost his mom earlier this week, and certainly our thoughts and prayers with the Cackless family.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, you know, Dino and Nicole and his family are like family to me.
Absolutely.
You know, I've known Dino for 15 plus years now, and of course got to spend a lot of time with his family. You know, even spend time in Florida at their home. So both his mother and father really, you know, were like surrogate parents, or whatever you want to call it. So, you know, of course, his father passed a couple years ago, and his mom passing now. So it's tough. I haven't had a chance to speak with them yet, but I mean, obviously I will. But you know, certainly their families in our thoughts and prayers.
You had some good times with that family here, didn't you?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Still do.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Still do. I mean, yeah, obviously we don't see them as much, but we try to get together with them, you know, a couple times a year.
Sure, absolutely. So again, we send our thoughts and prayers to Dino and Nicole and the entire Cackless family. We turn our attention now to the Pikeville Bears, a team that we beat here. They're coming out of the eastern mountains of the Commonwealth. coming off a tough loss. They're 1-2. Tell me a little bit about the Bears, and let's start offensively. I guess I could just throw this out. Quan Weaver is the first guy we're going to talk about, I'm sure, but they're a really good offensive ball club at times, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, and I mean, they're putting up some good numbers. I mean, they're a little bit on the run-heavy side, which is to be expected when you have a running back like that. But they do a lot of the new craze now is the run-pass option stuff, to where each play could be a run or a pass based on what the defense does. But they've run the ball a lot more than they've thrown it. So I think that's going to be what they're going to try to do. And of course, that's one of the first things we always talk about doing is taking the run game away and forcing them to throw the ball.
Right.
So, but they're always a very athletic bunch. I've been in this league now this is my 12th season, and they've always been one of the more athletic teams, to play. So I don't anticipate it being any different this weekend.
And typically they're pretty good on special teams. He's a really good special teams player too, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, return-wise, they've been good, and we've seen that through the years. And of course, that's going to be, another big task for us is keeping those yards to a minimum and eliminating the big plays there, because those big plays in special teams, as they tend to carry a little bit more weight than maybe an offensive or a defensive one. But so I mean, we're going to have to play well in order to be successful. That's for sure. It's
a crossover. It's a non-conference game when you look at them in the East and us in the West. But certainly, it's a chance now to step into the Mid-South Conference, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, the next 9 are all Mid-South games. I believe we don't get into the division games until the last 5. But these next few are going to be against the Eastern Division. But I mean, you've been around this conference longer than I have, and you know that top to bottom, both sides.
Absolutely.
There aren't any easy weeks, so it's every week is going to be a strong test for us.
I'm not sure sometimes, and I think, and I'm not saying our fans are guilty of it. I think across the board, when you look at the NAI level, I don't think people really realize how good the Mid-South Conference is. Year in, year out, from top to bottom. Now, you've had your Bethels, we've had the Georgetowns, and you see Union years ago dominate, and they've struggled a little bit. But you look at this thing top to bottom, Coach, and I want you to echo your thoughts about this statement. It's really a tough league, and I think probably around the country it's recognized as like the SEC of the NAI. Talk about that, if you would.
Well, I mean, if people always talk about the mid-states, and that's a very large league, and they typically do really well. But I would put the Mid-South right up there. I don't know, whoever does the rankings, because I don't buy in any of that anyways. But but I mean, our conference last year had 4 teams in the playoffs, and pretty sure that's the first time that's ever happened. Because we've only had the split divisions for 8 to 10 years, I think, and the most we had until last year was 3. But both conference, both division champions got in, and then we got an at-large out of both sides. And I mean, that's something you typically see out of a mid-states type conference, just because they're so large. I think they have 16 teams or 14 teams. I mean, we have 12. Well, we'll be up to 13 next year. But and you look at both divisions. I mean, there's no clear cut going into the season. This is the favorite. That's who's going to win, and that's how it works out. Sure. I mean, every year is different, but I mean, even last year we only got 4 teams in, but there were probably 5 or 6 teams that at one point or another were in position to get into the playoffs at some point and then just didn't, finish or whatever.
Zach and I were looking at the rankings, which came out this past Tuesday on the NAI level, and it's really astounding year in, year out what happens. You see Georgetown struggle at home, they lose. You see Campbellsville struggle early in the season, they both drop out of the top 25. Reinhardt jumps in, they were receiving votes, and then here comes Faulkner. Don't ever forget Faulkner and Lindsey Wilson right now. Lindsey moves up their best ranking ever at number 3, and Faulkner's right on their heels at number 5. And the thing is, folks, we play all those folks.
Yeah, I mean, and you look.
I didn't need to remind you of that, did I?
No, but even the preseason stuff, and I mean, of course, all those rankings are really based off of the year prior. But I think at least 3 of the teams on our side were preseason ranked, and I think 3 of them are, or at least 2 of them still are. Yeah. Well, no, there's still 3 because Reinhardt's, actually 4 because Reinhardt was receiving votes, I think, at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Because you had Campbellsville, Faulkner, and Lindsey Wilson because they're on our side now. So, and that's what we've always said, and I think, you and I have talked about that before, where if we put ourselves in a position where we win our division and, we can get through our conference play and get into the playoffs, we know that we've played competition good enough to prepare us, to have a solid playoff run.
Absolutely. I have to put my spectacles on here, folks, but I look down and I look at, we talked about Quan Weaver, a great player, a Kentucky State transfer. Let's switch over to the defensive side. We'll see one of the best linebackers. We like our linebackers a lot. Vic and all the gang, Brenton Davis and all the guys I could talk about on and on and on. We'll talk about them in a minute. But Arthur Williams from Lancaster, South Carolina, they call him the Bear. That's the position he plays. I mean, 2 sacks. Almost 5 tackles for losses, 2 interceptions, and leads them in tackles. I mean, we're going to see one of the best linebackers in the entire conference come Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not surprising. Like I said, typically they're a very talented team. Right. So, to hear statistics like that and across the board, they're going to have good players. And I mean, you just have to be ready for it.
Sure. What do they do defensively? How do they line up?
Mostly a 4-man front. A lot like. Pretty similar to what Missouri Baptist did, in terms of the things they're going to line up in. They'll show a little 3-4. Just depends. I mean, that's what we're planning for. Of course, you get out there on Saturday afternoon, then it's a matter of if they've made any changes. But we played them last year, so you can kind of look back at last year and see how they lined up to some things, and see if it follows the tendencies or if it breaks them. So. You put together a plan based on what you think, and then you get out here Saturday, and then you see what it actually ends up being, and then you have to be ready to adjust and do different things if necessary.
We talked about this last week too. The special teams, a third of the game. 2 really good field goal kickers. 2 of the highest rated field goal kickers percentage-wise. I know it's early, but sometimes those stats get skewed. But they've got an outstanding field goal kicker who does their punting, likewise, just like Casey does for us.
Yeah, I mean, those guys have the opportunity to be huge difference makers in a game. I mean, like you said, they both punt, and punting is field position, flipping the field, and those kind of things. If you don't get first downs, so it's huge. To have those guys step up and do a really good job. And then obviously anytime you put them on the field in a kicking situation, to try to put points on the board, you want to have them be successful with that too.
Yeah, you're watching and listening to Coach Chris Elliott as he previews the upcoming Pikeville game. We'll have airtime here on Wildcat Vision at 1 o'clock and the kickoff at 1:30. Hope to see a big crowd here decked out in purple with all the activities going on here in the home opener 2015. There'll be tailgating and all sorts of fun festivities going on around the stadium. Coach, before we talk about the keys to this game, let's assess 2 games in, and let's, for the most part, just throw some of the Martin game out. Assess where your team is. Talk about, if you want to talk about some individuals, who's really, what have you really been pleased with, and what are the major areas of concern right now?
Well, I've just been pleased with how we've handled everything up to this point, and I mean, it's not surprisingly so. I mean, like we've talked about before, a lot of these things were expected. I think we're in a good place. I think we're in a better place than we've been, and that's just because this group is a more veteran group. We thought that was going to be one of our strengths coming into the year. And I mean, just like we said after the first game, one game does not make a season. So I said the same exact thing, the other night after the game in Martin, because I mean that's not going to define how the rest of the year goes. I mean, Lord willing, we got 9 more of them left. And that's a lot of football. It'll come and go quick, but that's a lot of football to be played. So what you cannot do, and I said, you don't get too high when things go well, and you don't get too low when things don't go well. You kind of have to maintain a level head about things, and that's how we approach things. And like I said, I think we're in a really good place, and I think our guys are going to be fine this week, and I think we're going to come out and play well.
It's funny how you remember things and take snapshots in life. Coach Elliott talking about the highs and lows. Not that anyone cares other than me. Maybe Zach does. But my 4th grade teacher, I don't know how many of you could remember your 4th grade teacher, but I do. Lockie McCraw was her name. She told us one time, and always stuck with me. I don't know that Lockie said anything else I really remember, but she was a sweet lady. But she said, nothing ever is as good as it seems, and nothing's ever as bad as it seems. You really have to have that mentality in sports. Coach, Pikeville, the Bears coming in here. We played them here last year. The renewal of the contracts and the crossover, that's why we're playing them 2 years in a row, if anyone asks. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it just... I'm not complaining.
Oh no, absolutely.
Pikeville's a long trip, but
it's a long trip.
I don't know. I guess that's how the scheduling ended up working whenever the commissioner put it together. So I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
For them, I mean, I'm sure they didn't want to come back for a second year.
Well, Kelly gets tired of me saying this every year, but there's a trivia question about Pikeville where they play in a city complex there down in the valley. It's where Greg Maddox, his first professional ball game he ever pitched. the Hall of Famer now, the former Brave and Cub, but he was with the Pikeville Bears, the rookie league or single A league or whatever it was. What are the keys for a big win over the Pikeville Bears?
I mean, there aren't very many secrets to being successful when you play football. I mean, offensively, obviously execute, what we're trying to do. Taking care of the football, which we've done okay. We've had one turnover each game, and that's not good. Right now our turnover margin overall is even. We've lost 2 turnovers and we've taken it away twice, and statistics will show if you're right around there. You're it's not where you want to be, because most of the time you end up with a 500-ish record, right, and we don't want to be there.
Sure.
So we've got to start taking care of the ball better and keeping it. For 4 quarters. I mean, people might say, well, that's just 1, but 1 is too many. That's not acceptable. So taking care of the football, obviously our guys up front have to play really well in order to do the things that we want to do. And if we're able to do that, I think it'll put us in a great position offensively. Defensively, obviously we got to take away the run. And put them in a position to do, maybe what they don't want to do as much, in terms of throwing the ball. Not that they're not capable of doing that, but I mean, when you have the people they have and the way they're able to run the ball, that's what they want to do. So we've got to make them uncomfortable and taking them out of that, and just make sure we're getting to the football, take the ball away as much as possible. Anytime we can, get an opportunity for turnovers, we need to do that. Overall, just go out and have fun and play hard.
Yeah, the bottom line is too, I think sometimes the average or casual fan forgets this too. They like to run. If we take the run away early, especially, it puts a seed of doubt in their mind. I mean, football is like any other sport. It's a game of momentum and a lot of mental stuff to it as much as it is physical.
Oh yeah, I mean, and of course, we're always trying to build that confidence. And that's why, of course, that's why we do all the things we do to prepare. Otherwise, we just hang out all week and then just dress on Saturday and play. I mean, there's a reason why we spend the time in meetings and we practice and do all the things that we do, so that, by the time you get to Saturday, you feel like you know your opponent about as well as you can, and then you just go play. And the goal is to have there be as little thought as possible once you actually get out there, and you just go react to what happens and do your thing.
Excellent points. One of your fine assistants, and we'll talk about the staff next week. We really haven't gone in depth of all that. I think we mentioned in week 1 some of the duties and those things, but we're going to talk about your staff next week a little bit. But one of those guys, Paul Frazier, down goes Frazier. He stuck his head in the door of my office just across the street here. And he and I were talking, and I just wasn't paying homage to him. I really mean this. I feel good about every ball game. I know Faulkner's ranked. I know Lindsay's ranked. But bottom line is, I think we can win every game this year. I think we really have to look at it that way, and I think we're certainly, from what I've seen thus far, I think we're capable of doing that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the plan.
Sure.
And I mean, of course, this week we're worried about Pikeville.
Right.
And we'll go out and do the best we can and hopefully take care of that one, and then we'll move on to the next one. I don't even know who we play next week, but we got to take care of this week first, and that's really got to be our mentality, because when you start going too far ahead, then you're not taking care of right now, and right now is what's most important.
Absolutely. Give my best to your lovely wife Lindsay and your beautiful daughter Emma, and we'll see you Saturday, and good luck to you, Coach.
Will do. Thank you, Dave.
Coach Chris Elliott joins us here on the Chris Elliott Show. Thanks for joining us. For Zach O'Kelly and for the coach, go Cats. Hope to see you here Saturday. Again, airtime 1 o'clock on Wildcat Vision, and the kickoff at 1:30. But more than anything else, we want to see you in the stands cheering on the Wildcats. Very special ceremony before the ball game. We'll talk about that during our pregame as well. It's going to wrap it up for the Chris Elliott Show. I'm Diamond Dave McCulley. So long, everybody.